Um, and we will be talking about something quite
Just hold.
fitty.
Yeah, now you can start.
Okay.
Yes, you can start now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to MCD live session today on emotional abandonment and how we can move towards healing and reconnecting with ourselves if we have been through an experience that, of course, has left us feeling like we cannot reconnect back or connect back with ourselves or with other people. We are going to discuss that. A lot of us, many people, we experience something that we very often struggle to even identify that it is happening to us. And we are not able to identify that the things that are happening to us are actually signs of emotional abandonment, whether it is from our own selves or from other people. Because whenever we hear the word abandonment, we usually associate it with someone actually physically leaving us, like a parent leaving us, a caregiver leaving us, or even our partner leaving us. But it's not just that. It's not usually physical abandonment. Emotional abandonment is usually very much subtle in comparison to physical abandonment. A person can be physically present in your life every single day, and they can still leave you feeling emotionally alone, emotionally unseen, right? And this is something that affects how we see ourselves, how we build our relationships, and even how we cope with stressful situations in our lives. Now, the good thing about all this is that, of course, something we have touched upon time and time again, that we as human beings, of course, have the ability to heal from things. We have the ability to heal our emotional wounds. And we will try to understand what emotional abandonment is, how it affects us, and why it happens. And the most important part of it, how can we move towards emotional security? How can we move towards healthier relationships? And we need to build a mindset. Actually, we need to set an intention before we start off today. The intention is to have and create that ability that in case we encounter a situation like that, we are emotionally secure, we are emotionally stable to deal with it and move forward and grow rather than staying static and not being able to move at all. So, before we begin, let's start off with a mindfulness activity. So, we can remain present, we can remain where we are rather than our minds wandering around here and there. And we'll start off by sitting comfortably and leaving our leaving our shoulders and our hands free, relaxing our bodies and removing that stiffness from our shoulders and letting them free, letting them down. And try to try to close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Just try to leave your feet resting on the ground and don't put any pressure against the ground, against the floor, and just let them be. Just let them be there. Let your let your hands be free. Let your feet rest on the ground and let your body be absolutely free of whatever you have been carrying on your shoulders before you came to the session. So I want you all to keep your eyes closed if you feel comfortable. And now try to breathe in through your nose. Hold that breath in for a second and breathe out from your mouth. Again, breathe with me from your nose and breathe out from your mouth. Breathe in from your nose and breathe out from your mouth. Now I want you to remain calm and while your eyes are closed, just say it to yourself quietly within your heart. My worth does not depend on how someone treats. My worth does not depend on how someone treats me. I am emotionally sufficient for myself. I am emotionally sufficient for myself. And no one can take that away from me. No one can take away my emotional security away from me. No one can take my emotional security away from me. Keep repeating these affirmations to yourself in your heart. Keep telling this to yourself that I am enough for myself. My emotional sufficiency cannot be taken away by anyone. And I know who I am. And I'm proud of myself for who I have become. Keep telling yourself that you are sufficient. Try to keep telling yourself that. And now I would like you to take a deep breath in through your nose and breathe out from the mouth. Breathe in through your nose and breathe out from your mouth. Now I want you to slowly open your eyes when you feel comfortable doing so we can begin understanding what emotional abandonment is. Just try to settle in, try to settle in. And now we are going to understand what emotional abandonment is. Now, emotional abandonment is basically the experience because we're talking about something that is not, it is rarely acknowledged by people that they are a part of it, that they are doing it, right? And even by someone who's experiencing it, they are not able to recognize what it is, right? And they may feel like it is a normal pattern of behaviors, but it is not. Now, emotional abandonment is actually the experience of feeling emotionally unseen, unheard, and unsupported. Of course, if you're unseen, unheard, you will be unsupported, right? And even disconnected from people who are important to us. Now, it happens when our emotional needs, like our need to be loved, our need to feel loved, understood, our need to be comforted, accepted, reassurance, all these things are when they are repeatedly ignored, when they are repeatedly unmet. That is what emotional abandonment is. Now, it doesn't mean that someone actually intended to hurt us. Some people, some parents, some caregivers, some spouses, some partners, they do provide food, education, financial support, even. They provide everything that is needed for your physical survival, but they still struggle to respond when it comes to your emotion, when it comes to emotional needs. Now, if you can imagine a child who comes home from school, and they are very and the child is very upset because of course they are being bullied in the school, and now instead of being comforted, they get to hear by their parents or their siblings or their caregivers that you are overreacting, just forget about it. Now, what will happen over time? The child will stop sharing their feelings altogether. They will start believing that their emotions, they don't matter to the people who are close to him, right? So you cannot tell a child who is emotionally overwhelmed that I'm going to get you your favorite snack to eat. That won't automatically meet their emotional needs, or at times um, it may for children, but that doesn't work like that for everyone. Emotional abandonment is not necessarily intentional, but of course the impact of it can be very detrimental on the person who is experiencing it. So it's very important for you to recognize it as someone who is doing it to someone, and also someone who is experiencing it. Now, there are many researches in the current times that show that emotional neglect or abandonment can have actually long lasting effects on your mental health. And even if there is no physical abuse, now there are studies on attachment theory, which was by John Bowlby, and which was later on expanded by Mary Ainsworth. Now, it shows that children who experience consistent emotional support, they are more likely to be, uh, to be in emotionally secure relationships later in life. So it all begins in your childhood. There are, and vice versa, of course. If you are not experiencing emotional safety and emotional support in your childhood, and you will definitely have fear-based and anxious attachment based relationships in your life later on. Now, there have been researches on adverse childhood experiences, which again also found that emotional neglect is actually associated with a higher risk of anxiety, depression, difficulties in relationships, and lower self esteem later in adulthood. So, whatever is happening in your childhood, it's not just happening and vanishing, it is moving forward with you. It is moving forward into your life experiences, and it goes on and on and on, and it can even be passed on to the future generations, right? A person who has actually suffered, there have been researches about generational trauma, that people who have experienced lack of emotional support in their childhood, they do experience it later in their adulthood, and similarly they do have the capacity, or the possibility or probability of passing it on to the next generation, to their own children, because they never experience that support, so they don't know what it looks like, and so they are not able to um, do it the other way. So of course it's not a one time thing. If a child is experiencing adverse events in their childhood, it can not just impact the child later on in their adulthood, but it can also impact future generations. So it's a cycle. And that cycle, of course, needs to be broken, right? Now, we talked so much about neuroscience in every one of our sessions. And the good part about all these researches is that none of these things are permanent. At any point, at any given point of your lives, these chronic that seem like chronic things, chronic impacts, these can actually be broken. They do influence how the brain processes stress and emotion. Of course, when you have been through so much in your life, when your foundational years are supposed to be something that make you feel comforted, make you feel loved, if they are, of course, spent in speculation about why you are experiencing such and such thing, of course it is bound to affect the way you are going to view yourself in the future, how you view stress, how you deal with stress. But the good thing about all of this is that it's not permanent. There are findings that support the idea that through supportive friendships, supportive relationships, and through therapy, through proper mental health education, by being aware of your emotions, of your experiences, of being aware of society. One of the skills so important for you when it comes to mental health education is social awareness, understanding why people behave the way they do. um, Relationship skills, when we learn these things, we learn these skills, uh, we do have the ability to change. We do have the ability to remove the adverse effects of the childhood experiences we've had. People can develop healthier patterns. People can experience greater emotional security even after these events. A traumatic event or an adverse childhood event is not supposed to hold you back. Now, of course, there are certain things that may actually tell you how it shows up later in life. There might be some signs. You will definitely talk about changing it, but we also need to understand how these things show up later in life. Now, many people who actually have the effects of emotional abandonment, they don't realize it, as I said in the beginning. Now, of course, it's not the usual sadness or the obvious distress that usually assume it is. It actually appears in your everyday behaviors, right? And you may actually mistake it for personality traits. Someone, who has been through emotional abandonment, they may constantly try to apologize even when they are not wrong, even when they are not on the wrong side of a discussion, right? They constantly have a fear of upsetting others. They are constantly walking on eggshells and worrying about what someone is going to think about what they have done, what they have said. So they are in a constant worry. They are in a constant state of worry and they're constantly thinking. So one sign is constant apologizing, constantly being apologetic. Then the second thing is over pleasing, becoming people pleaser, always putting everyone else's need before your own because you think that you will only be accepted if you are useful. Now, some people, they avoid asking for help. They become hyper independent because they believe that if they ask for help, they will face rejection. Now, others, they become they some may just not ask for help, while some may become overly independent. Hyper dependent is the word that we use for this. And they may convince themselves that they don't need anyone. And that is, of course, a defense mechanism to tell themselves that because they have been through so much abandonment and they feel like looking out for someone who is eventually going to abandon them, what's the point? So just believe, just develop a belief that you do not need anyone at all, right? On the other hand, there are people who become overly anxious. They become overly anxious in relationships. They start constantly worrying that people will leave them. And these behaviors are usually are all of these behaviors, they are attempts to protect ourselves from experiencing the pain, the emotional pain of abandonment and neglect. Now, of course, this is bad in a way that at this point we don't understand how to deal with it. Now, when we are aware that if a situation like that appears, how to deal with it? How do we do it? How do we address it? Now, sometimes even when it comes to social constructs, social contexts, there are some things that are hidden behind the societal and cultural context that are very very common signs of emotional abandonment. Now, you can see a person who is working all the time, and they may be spending too much time in the kitchen baking something and doing things that they feel like are going to help them earn the love and the approval that they never felt, right? Now someone may actually say that I'm fine, but they are not fine because they realize that sharing their experiences and their emotions actually led to disappointment because nobody cared. Now, people develop difficulty trusting others. People have a fear of being vulnerable. They have a lot of people, they are uncomfortable when it comes to compliments. They don't like receiving compliments because it feels alien to them, right? And a lot of people, they totally avoid emotional conversations and they even feel guilty for having needs. All of these are signs of emotional wounds. And these are coping strategies that, of course, may have helped a person survive at one point in their lives. But they don't serve a purpose any longer if you are having people who are emotionally safe. Now, why does it feel so adverse, so heavy for us? Right? Because human beings are biologically wired for connection. And as children, we do depend on our caregivers, not just for food, not just for protection, but also for constant emotional reassurance. And if that is repeatedly unavailable, that is repeatedly absent, what will happen? Our brain will begin to perceive normal relationships as unpredictable, unsafe, right? And it can actually leave people feeling very much on high alert, constantly on high alert. They're constantly afraid of rejection. They feel emotionally disconnected. And even in adulthood, like let's imagine a small event, a very small event, like someone not replying to a message or even a small disagreement with a loved one, it can actually induce or trigger a huge emotional reaction, which many of us may believe that it was unnecessary or unprovoked. But of course, that small disagreement or late reply to a message may have unconsciously reminded the person of their earlier experiences of emotional disconnection, right? So there's a whole background behind such huge emotional reactions, which we find odd at times from people who we may feel like, why is this person reacting such a way to something so small? We wouldn't have reacted this way. We are not able to understand the reaction, and probably because maybe we may have coped better, or maybe we don't understand the experience of emotional abandonment or emotional wounds that they are carrying. So it's very important to move towards growth, to move towards healing, and to move towards understanding things. Now, emotional security is something, it's not something that life becomes completely free from. We have an unhealthy idea of being emotionally secure. There are fears, there are conflicts, there are disappointments in your life, even if these things don't exist, even if you are emotionally secure. It just means that you develop confidence that your emotions are valid, your needs also matter, and healthy relationships can exist, right? Someone who's not emotionally secure, they would believe every relationship is bound to push them in ruins, but that's not the reality, right? Being emotionally secure means that there is a possibility of healthier relationships. Just because of bad experiences, that may be few or a lot, doesn't mean that it's determining the entire future that we have ahead, right? So emotional security begins when we identify our feelings, all the things that we talked about above, and we discussed them before coming to the healing part. I think so. I think so. They all all the things that we discuss, they will actually help us identify the things that are unhealthy. And from identification, from self awareness, when you recognize those things exist in you, that is how you will move towards self management. That is how you will move towards the healing process, right? So you will start understanding yourself from the point of view of empathy, instead of and even other people, right? Even other people, let's assume if you have a friend who feels who looks angry because you can say because you replied late. Let's see it from that point of view, that you can even view other people from that lens. You may make excuses for them. You may try to try to translate their pain, their anger into something that, of course, in the past may have hurt them, and it may have triggered their past trauma. So try to make excuses for people rather than jumping to conclusions, and similar for your own self, same for your own self. Now, you can start the healing process by recognizing. And the first step is developing emotional awareness by asking ourselves very simple feeling things, very simple questions, that what am I feeling right now? What do I need? And the next step is the challenging part, the challenging of old beliefs. Challenge your thoughts. Before jumping to conclusions for your own self, pause. Pause for a moment. This is the you can say the mantra for every single thing that we discuss every day. Just pause. Don't jump to conclusions or judgments. Challenge these old thoughts that you may have about yourself, like I'm not good enough, or people have always left me, they always leave me. Now these beliefs, they have developed from painful experiences, but they are not facts. They are not facts. Some 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 20, 30 events don't define uh, who you are. They are part of your life. They have been a part of your life, but they don't, become facts. So you need to recognize your emotions. You need to challenge your old patterns of thought patterns. You also need to learn healthy emotional regulation skills. You need to start setting boundaries with people rather than over giving yourself just to be seen, just to be heard, and just to be loved. Allow yourself to experience relationships rather than running away from them, where we do feel respected, where you do feel like there is space for us in this relationship. Try to move towards that relationship rather than shutting it down and shutting it off and turning the door closed because you feel like it's going to end up making you feel hurt. So understanding, learning about your own self, your own emotions, pausing. And how do we reconnect? Reconnecting with other people, of course, begins when you start reconnecting with your own self. It means going through all these steps, recognizing yourself, challenging your thoughts, allowing yourself to ask for support. It's good to ask for support. Social support can be so helpful in times of crisis, right? It's not a bad thing. Recognizing that taking support does not make you weak or vulnerable. So allow yourself to ask for support. Give yourself permission to rest. Make mistakes. Just be imperfect. And try to reconnect with safe people who listen without judgment, who respect your boundaries, because people who are safe, they will respect your boundaries. They will make you feel accepted. Instead of you being constantly anxious, just try to recognize the signs that you experience in your body when you are around people. And it will help you filter out who should remain in your life and who should not. Right. So, please know that a lot of people, when they have past experiences, they just want to get rid of them, but you cannot, uh, fixate on the idea that growth just has to happen only if the past is erased. Your past cannot be disappeared, right? Your past can only the only thing that you can do is that you stop letting your past having control on your future or your present, because it doesn't have any control. It's gone. It's no longer there. It happened and it's gone. But it cannot control your future. It cannot control your present if you take control of your emotions. And every time we actually choose the healthier options, healthier communication, healthier boundaries, greater self love, self compassion, pausing, meditating, we actually move towards the reconnecting part, right? So reconnect with yourself and try to reconnect with others after you are done reconnecting with yourself. So we have Pilasha's comment. If we have expect and then it doesn't work that way, then it's painful. So is it not okay to be self-sufficient and not expecting anything emotionally from a particular person? As I said, assess how emotionally safe that person feels for you. How how does that person make you feel usually when you are around that person? How does that person make you feel? If they feel like they are not they are bound to disappoint you, because as human beings we do have some signs that we experience. Our body does recognize who is emotionally safe and who is not. We automatically start feeling that way. So if you feel that way in the very first instance, set your boundaries. Set your boundaries with that person. And don't overly rely. Create a balance. Your balance should be about trusting people, spending time with them, but at the same time, those people should be safe for you. And at the same time, your happiness shouldn't be reliant on other people. So if you are too overly reliant on other people, they will, of course, disappoint you. There needs to be a balance. And creating that balance, of course, requires a lot of practice. That practice is of recognizing your own emotions. A lot of people who have been through so much in their lives, they develop a sense of independence rather than over independence. They will have the ability to disengage from a conversation when they feel like, no, I cannot be a part of it. This is affecting my mental health. This is affecting my sanity. They will disengage. The moment your body actually gives you the signs that this is not safe, disengage, create boundaries, and create a balance. The problem arises when we are overly reliant on other people for things that are supposed to be our responsibility. People will disappoint you, of course, but they are not supposed to guide your entire journey. Love yourself, be compassionate to your own self, depend on others, but not overly rely on other people. There needs to be a balance. And figuring out that balance takes some time and personal effort. All right. So, does anybody have any questions? I or we can call it a day. I want you all to leave with a reflection today. All the things and the signs that we discussed today. When you are done with the session, when you go offline, try to reflect. Think about things that you may think um, count as emotional wounds in your life. You experienced or someone you know actually been through it. Try to look out towards other people and in your own heart, in your own mind, and look for the signs of those emotional wounds and make a plan. Work on, if you made pointers on what we discussed on how to heal, that's good. If not, then start recognizing those things. The first step towards healing and reconnecting is recognizing, acknowledgement, self awareness, awareness of your emotions. The next part, the later part comes, later. The next part comes later. And challenge those thoughts. Because suppression is what causes pain, suppression is what causes problems. And we don't have to suppress our emotions, right? And we don't have to overdo them either. So, anyhow, um, Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you everyone who's going to be looking at the session, watching the session. And I hope this benefited all of you. And I would be seeing you all tomorrow at the same time on MCD Live. Have a great day ahead. Take care. Bye bye.